So as we continue our tour in the 9/11 Memorial, we'll see the damage that happened to the area. And this is the museum, and if you can take a look at the museum, the roof of the museum is tilted to the left, and that represents the damage and the destruction that happened to the World Trade Center. This is not a piece of the building, but just a representation that tells you that the building were falling down. And this is a memorial for the South Tower. South Tower was here, the North Tower was up a few feet, and the reason they put it as a pool because they wanted to memorize and remember the fact that everything has gone down and down the drain. It was a very sad day. I was actually planning to come to the area on that day, and miraculously I was canceled from my meeting here. This whole area was full of smoke and dust, and everybody, it was a very sad day. You can take a look at the buildings nearby. They started renovating these buildings one at a time. It's a quite of an impressive job they have done here, and I think this is going to be one of the very touristic attractions of New York City. And this is the tower number 1. It's one of the tallest towers that they already built. There are actually going to be more buildings here. The building process has been taking quite a while, but I think they're taking their time doing everything as perfect as they possibly can. As we see, there's a lot of tourists down here. And it's actually something to remind us with the hatred of terrorism and how much terrorism is not to build anything. It's always destroying. We had one-of-a-kind buildings here in the downtown Manhattan, and they're gone. They're not here. So we're saying that to make sure that our viewers know the danger of terrorism and how we can put our efforts together to fight every inch of it.
9/11, 2001. 4 planes change America and the world forever. 19 men, armed with box cutter knives, strike a stunning blow against the mightiest superpower on the planet. Now investigators must discover how the multi-billion-dollar security apparatus of the US military, intelligence, and aviation authorities could be totally blindsided by a simple plot that exploits fatal gaps in their defenses. Disasters don't just happen. They are triggered by a chain of critical events. Unravel the fateful decisions in those final seconds from disaster. The United States. New York, Griffiths Air Force Base. September 11th, 2001, 7 a.m. America prepares for war. Operation Vigilant Guardian will simulate an attack coming in from across the nation's borders.
We have periodic air defense exercises. You can call them war games, if you will.
Colonel.
Air Force Colonel Bob Marr is in charge of the Northeast Air Defense Sector. He's responsible for 2.5 million square kilometers of airspace, covering Washington, D.C. and New York in the east, all the way past Chicago in the middle of the country.
We practice all of our procedures so that if we ever did have to go to war, obviously we've been well prepared.
Marr doesn't know what form today's training will take. His team has to be ready to deal with any conceivable threat from outside America. 400 kilometers away. 5 passengers are already checking in at Boston Logan Airport.
Can I ask you a few questions?
They're booked on American Airlines Flight 11 to Los Angeles. Automated screening selects 3 of the men for additional scrutiny, but all 5 pass through checks without incident.
So today show we have one of the most I would say sad memories we had in New York about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 9/11, and we're at the memorial of the 9/11 attack, and I'm interviewing Mr. Anthony Gudo. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I would like to bring the attention of my viewers about what happened in 9/11 and what are the consequences and why we're here today. So if you can give us an idea about 9/11.
Sure. I mean, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives on 9/11, and these were individuals from 90 different countries around the world. It happened here at the World Trade Center site, the North Tower behind us, the South Tower in the other corner of the Memorial Plaza. Also happened in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And all totaled, 2,983 people are commemorated here at the 9/11 Memorial. So every victim, their names are etched in bronze around either the North Pool behind us or the South Pool. And they're also commemorated inside the 9/11 Memorial Museum, which helps to tell the story and provides the education as to what happened, on that day in the 3 attack sites.
Okay, so do we have a lot of people coming here, visiting and viewing the museum?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the museum itself opened on May 21st to the public. We've had more than 900,000 people already come to the museum. The memorial itself, the open grounds that we're standing on, 15 million people have come to the memorial since it's open on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. So it is a very, very popular place for visitors to New York City.
Why was it so important to have a memorial in this place right here?
Yeah, I mean, the largest act of terrorism, largest loss of life on American soil. Everyone remembers the story of what happened here, the violence, the terrible tragedy. These were just everyday people going to work like you or I might have been. No one signed up for this. So the fact that this happened right here in the heart of New York City, it was very important to commemorate and to remember and to continue to tell the story of what happened, for future generations. And that's really where the museum comes in, telling the historical, factual report of what happened on that day. It's the largest loss of life on American soil, act of terrorism. So it was important to commemorate and remember what happened on that day, and also for future generations to tell the story from a historical standpoint as to what happened in all 3 attacks. Missions of the museum to tell the story of 9/11 for future generations.
Were you yourself around at a 9/11 attack?
Yeah, I was about 20 blocks north of here in Soho. So for me, I got out of New York City on a commuter train up north, and I rode with many people from down here, dust on their shirts and jackets, and so I'll never forget that day for sure, and as to what happened, and then the weeks and months afterwards. That's really what this place is about as well. The recovery period, the outpouring of emotion and physical and emotional assistance that the city received, and the weeks and months that it took to recover and help New York City heal.
I'm still hung up on the fact that we have to still remember the sad parts of the 9/11, but I think it's so important for the whole world to know what is terrorism. So what do you think of terrorism, and what do you think, how would this affect us at the present time or in the future?
Sure, it continues to affect us. There's no question about it. The way we travel via the airlines has definitely been affected. Our security has certainly been affected. I think that's one of the important factors of the museum. It tells the story, the rise of Al-Qaeda, talks about terrorism around the globe and how it infected us. And also, as you said, it's a sad story, but it's also, we're in place to not forget the 3,000 victims. So the museum talks about the lives lost, the lives they led. We have oral histories, photos, biographies on all of the victims. So it's an important place to remember not only what terrorism can do and what it continues to do to the globe, but also who the victims were that day and how we can remember the lives they led before the attacks.
Do you get to see families of the victims?
Absolutely. Family members come back here all the time. They have access to the Memorial Museum at any point that they want, and certainly, yeah, they're a big part of the stakeholder groups that come back here, whether it's to visit the memorial, visit the names. The traditional readings of the names will happen right here on the Memorial Plaza, so family members have been selected by lottery. They'll each read a handful of names, and that begins at 8:46 that morning and runs all the way to about 12:30. So that happens here in the Memorial Plaza. At that point, the memorial and the museum are only for family members. So they'll have this year what's new is they'll have the ability to go inside the museum, look at the artifacts, look at the photos and the objects they've donated in place. So that is the new wrinkle for this year at the anniversary ceremony.
How long did it take to build the museum, and if you can explain to me the structure of the museum?
Sure. I mean, it goes back to 2006, 2007 when our foundation, we were put in place. So the memorial and the museum were built at the same point. The memorial opened on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. So you have the memorial consists of the two pools. So literally the North Tower was right behind us here. So instead of building up, the design, the premise behind the memorial design is reflecting absence. Michael Arad was the winning designer. It was a international competition, 5,000 entries, and his vision for this was that we would never build up again. So we've got these two reflecting pools that go down. The waterfalls create a serene, peaceful environment, and then ringing each of the outsides of the memorial pools are the names of the victims. So if you died in the North Tower, your name is here. If you were on the flight that connected with the North Tower, your name appears here. Same thing with the South Tower. There are first responder names and the victims from the South Tower, as well as the Pentagon and Shanksville, Pennsylvania victims are on the South Tower memorial pool as well.
And what is this building right behind you?
Sure, so that's the Memorial Museum. The entry pavilion is a two-story structure. The bulk of the museum, 110,000 square feet, is all below ground. It's all right below where we're standing, but that is the entry pavilion that gets you into the museum structure.
What does a person expect to see when they go inside the museum?
Yeah, I mean, we tell the story of 9/11, again, the 3 attack sites. We talk about the lives lost, the 3,000 victims. We talk about the events of the day. So we tell the story in emotional ways with large artifacts, huge pieces of steel that were recovered from the site, all the way down to small objects, a watch, a wristband, ID cards from victims, personal stories from survivors. So there's a variety of content, multimedia, video, audio clips, and lots of photography to tell the story of 9/11.
Are we planning to build any more World Trade Center?
Well, for us, we control the 8 acres here, the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and that's as you see it behind me. But around the other 8 acres of the World Trade Center site continue to be built. 1 World Trade, 4 World Trade are up at their height and going to be occupied later this year. There's a transit hub behind the museum that is also coming into place for next year. And as well as World Trade Center 3, which is kind of back behind the museum pavilion, is just now getting off the ground. And those are the other 8 acres outside of our property.
Do you know how high are they going to go? Are they going to go at the same height of the previous World Trade Center?
Well, the largest building is in place. 1 World Trade Center with its spire has now been named the largest building in the Western Hemisphere, and that will be the largest of all the new World Trade Center buildings.
Great. What would you advise New Yorkers and tourists when they come here to do at the museum?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is come to our website, 911memorial.org. You can find out about ticket availability, book your date and time that you're looking for, find out about guided tours that we have available. We have apps that you can use, find out about audio tours and different possibilities, as well as if you're coming with children, if you're coming with seniors, if you're coming to research a certain part of the story. All of that information can be found on our website, and you can build your tour in your visit the best way possible.
What do you think are the proactive steps that the government and the Americans have to take to fight terrorism?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly an awareness, and we talk about that inside the museum and how it affects security and how the ongoing story of 9/11 proceeds. That's an installation inside the museum that we take today's news and put it through the 9/11 filter. So there's always stories popping up, whether it's terrorism related, security related, risk related, or just the continuing story of what happened on the day. So that is something that we expect to continue to be part of the conversation regarding 9/11 for a long time.
All right, Anthony, very nice meeting you, and I appreciate your time.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
And several of the hijackers board the plane carrying box cutter knives on their person or in their hand luggage.
There were regulations about the blade length. If it was less than 4 inches, for example, it was not considered to be necessarily a dangerous weapon.
Over the next 45 minutes, 14 more hijackers check into 3 more flights at cities across the northeast US. 3 more of them are picked up by caps, and several of the hijackers are also carrying knives. And yet, all of them are allowed to board their flights.
You have to understand that the procedures that were in place didn't contemplate hijackers who would try to destroy the plane.
Previously, hijackers had taken over passenger airliners to win a bargaining position, not for suicide missions. Nobody is prepared for a deadly airborne attack. And once on the flights, it was a simple matter for the hijackers to take over the planes. "32 minutes before first impact, the hijackers make their move.
If the hijackers demanded entry to the cockpit, the protocol at that point was open the door, let them in. The theory was we don't want to risk anyone's life.
Again, the theory doesn't allow for a suicide mission. The 19 hijackers take over 4 passenger jets and turn them into guided missiles. From this moment, there is nothing any airline or air traffic controller can do to stop them. The last line of defense is seemingly the US military, the biggest, best equipped air force in the world. But if they're going to act, they have to know that there is a threat. So John Farmer's investigation looks into the process of how the military become involved in a hijack.
And there was an existing hijacking protocol by which the military would be contacted and potentially fighter jets would be scrambled.
Going by the book, air traffic controllers had to contact the FAA controllers in Washington. Then, a chain of communications would follow before authority to scramble jets could be given. Had this protocol occurred on 9/11, the fighter jets could still have been sitting on the tarmac long after the 4th plane had crashed.
They essentially ditched that protocol that day.
9 minutes to disaster. Farmer discovers that unlike the bureaucracy that hampered the CIA and FBI, ATC threw away the rulebook. An air traffic controller was so concerned, he called direct to a local airbase in Rome, New York.
Where are you from?
Australia.
Australia. Wow. And you've been to see the museum?
We have, yes.
What did you think?
Yeah, it's very good.
Very good and very moving.
What were your impressions of all you saw there?
What would you say? It's, you know, just being great memories of what we saw on TV, TV when it happened.
Makes it more real, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Did you watch this when it was happening in Australia?
We did.
Yes, we
It
did.
was about 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. And son called us and told us that, it was on, so we watched. But, the only thing I've seen the display is that it's, you need a jumper down in the basement. It's so cold.
The things they collected at the site, it was very impressive.
What struck you the most?
The movie in the beginning.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All the,
That showed what was happening?
what was happening and all the president and Miss Rice talked about
the emotion on our face. The emotion on on their face. You can see and you can feel it again. You know, it's a long time ago and you know everything, but when you see it again, you feels it. You feels it again.
So it sounds like you think the museum was successful in capturing that emotion.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's devastating. It's very emotional to be here. I lived in New York for a long time. I moved up north about 20 years ago.
So when you must have been watching it on television, and you could
Here in New Jersey at the time. Actually, I was living up in Boston, but I was at a business meeting in New Jersey on the day it happened. On that beautiful blue sky, I remember that very vividly, and watching it on TV like probably thousands, millions of people dead, and being so distraught because I grew up in New York. I worked in New York City. I was down at the Trade Center probably every 2 weeks or so because I was a salesman.
so it had real relevance for you.
It struck home.
What do you think of the grounds around here with the museum?
I'm stunned. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful tribute. It's you walk up on the scene and just see these footings and these water flowing, and you can't help but feel very moved. I was very emotional, and I walked up and just looked at it. It's very powerful.
Where are you from?
I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And you've come up here
To see a lot of New York, U.S. Open, 9/11, Yankee game, taking it all in.
and what did you think of the museum?
It was wonderful, very touching, something that we should never ever forget.
You think they've captured what happened here?
Yes, I do, in a very nice way.
What about the grounds around here?
I think the grounds are beautiful. It's gorgeous.
It's very, very well done.
It's calming,
Yes.
it's peaceful, it's respectful.
8 minutes to disaster. The military have been notified, but that doesn't trigger an automatic armed response. Ma still requires an order from a superior officer before he can scramble planes. The prompt actions of the quick-thinking air traffic controller hit the brick wall of military bureaucracy.
My hat's off to him, because he was taking an initiative that really wasn't reflected a lot of the way up the chain later on.
Ma waits for authorization. Minutes later, he consults with his immediate superior, and they agree they can't wait any longer.
The order to scramble planes came from Rome, New York, and the commander in Rome said, I'll get the authorization from above later. We have to do this now.
Seconds to disaster. Ma orders 2 jets to scramble. Since the end of the Cold War, America's Rapid Response Force has been reduced. Just 4 jets are on standby to defend half of America's East Coast. The nearest are at Otis Air Force Base on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, 250 kilometers from New York City. As the first passenger airliner flies into the World Trade Center, the pilots are still waiting for the all clear. The F-15s only take off from Otis 7 minutes after the first attack hits. Farmer then examines how the military respond to the unfolding attacks, minute by minute. What he finds is extraordinary. Even after the first impact, nobody in authority yet knew that it was American 11 that had flown into the North Tower.
Where are you from?
England.
Oh, wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And you've been here to see the museum.
Yep.
What did you think of it?
Very humbling, very sort of surreal in a way. It's just something we've seen on telly, and you know, you come here and it's very, very, very strange.
What does it make you think about terrorism in general?
Why? Yeah, why? Just no need for it. No need. So, what can you say?
When you were in the museum, did it bring back those sad memories of that day?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's very strange to actually see and hear the noises down there, the voices and from the day, and it's just very strange.
Yeah.
But very good to see.
Yeah, we wasn't quite sure if we ought to be here, not being from America, before being from England. Wasn't sure if it was right to come and see it, but we felt we needed to see it, you know, didn't we?
Yeah.
Really, but yeah, it's tough.
Don't you think something like this that represents, you know, terrorism really belongs to any of us now, though?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're all under threat in a way, I suppose,
Yeah.
now, so it's, yeah, it's just nice to be here and just pay your respects to the people who can't be here.
Toronto, Canada.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Have you been to see the museum?
No, we're just going. We just arrived on site, so it's one of our things we wanted to do while we're here in New York City.
And what are your opinions about what's going on in the Mideast?
I don't have any political opinions. I find it too large a subject for myself, and that's how I spend my life. That's how I think. I don't like to get into political conversations.
You're from Germany.
Where in Germany?
Near Cologne.
All right. Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Have you been to the museum yet?
Yes, we've been in there.
And what were your impressions?
It was very much emotions. It's a very big Ausstellung, exhibition, and a lot to see.
I think the films were the best part of the exhibitions. They showed everything about the day and how everybody felt. So it was nice to get a kind of a feeling for what happened in this city on that day.
What does this tell us about terrorism in the world today?
Wow, huge question. Well, difficult. When you be here, when you stay on the ground, you just realize how big everything was around here. So you don't know that from where we are from, that it's so huge. So terrorism is it's huge what they've done to the city.
To go from where we started to today, it's quite a tribute.
Was it what you expected?
I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. Not from what was from the last time I saw it. It was just rubble, and so I didn't know what to expect.
You were here before then?
No, not before the 9/11. No, but you know, just seeing what I saw on TV and all the reports during the process of cleaning up.
What do you think of what's going on in the Mideast these days with all the terrorism?
What do I think? Well, we don't have time for that. I'll leave that up to all the people who that should be their full-time job.
9 a.m. The two F-15s are closing in on New York City. The thought of anyone flying a hijacked plane on a suicide mission still isn't computing.
It was just inconceivable that a plane would actually be flown into a building. So we continued our efforts to try to locate the flight.
1 minute to second impact. The authorities continue to respond to confusing reports of the first crashed plane, American 11, still flying in or around New York City.
We got American Airlines, Airlines 11. We think we might have them just east of New York.
They thought they had found it. They thought they were tracking it down the Hudson River, and then it vanished.
The F-15 fighter jets are still along the coast, looking for a plane that no longer exists. And now the second hijacked passenger jet, United 175, is about to hit the Twin Towers.
Actually, we don't realize there's another problem until we pretty much see it on TV, believe it or not.
Now, America knows without question it is under direct attack. At this point, the national command structure, senior politicians and the military should spring into action. News reports on the day itself and in the weeks following suggest that a coordinated response is instantly triggered and that it comes close to foiling the next attacks.
What had been told to the public was that the first two planes came as a shock, and the planes hit the Trade Center. But by the third flight, the national command structure had reasserted itself, had responded to the shock. They had scrambled planes in response to the report that the third plane, American 77, was heading for Washington, and were just too late to intercept that flight.
In the months after 9/11, this remains the official line on the third hijacked plane. But the 9/11 Commission reveals the true picture.
Different layers of government started talking to themselves. The president started talking to the vice president. Richard Clark in the White House, he had a video conference call with people at his level in the various agencies. The problem was no one was talking between those different levels.
Without decisive leadership from the national command structure, the people on the ground are left to do their best.
What we found was that there was no report to the military that American 77, the third plane, was hijacked at all. They had a report shortly before it crashed that it was missing, and they had a report shortly before it crashed that there was an unidentified plane somewhere near the Pentagon. But there was no report that American 77 had in fact been hijacked.
When it comes to United 93, the fourth hijacked plane, the official line that the authorities were in control of the situation is even stronger.
It was on radar. They had the authorizations they needed to intercept the plane and, if necessary, take it down.
But as John Farmer reviews the military's recordings, a different story comes to light.
Where are you from?
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Are you all from Louisiana?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been to here to see the museum?
Yes.
And your feelings?
Very emotional. Yeah, it's very emotional and sacred ground where a lot of people died, and I consider those people martyrs.
Sacred grounds. Very sacred ground. May their souls rest in peace.
Where are you from?
Southern California.
Me too.
Huntington Beach, California.
What have you? What are your thoughts about this memorial park here?
Well, I'm glad they did something. They have to remember what happened, and this is a good example of what we can do to hopefully memorialize those people that were lost.
Have you been into the museum yet? Is this what you expected?
Well, we had seen some pictures of it, but you don't really get the true perspective of it unless you see it for yourself. And you get to touch the names and sort of get a feel for the people that actually lost their lives here. So,
what do you think about all the terrorism that's going on now in the Mideast?
Well, we wish it wasn't happening, but we can only do so much from here, right? And hopefully the governments do what they're supposed to keep control of it so it doesn't spread like it happened here.
what we can do.
Thank you for your time.
Sure. It's a wonderful memorial. Very, very clever. Yeah, very fitting. Somber.
What do you think about the terrorism that's going on in the Mideast right now?
I don't tend to talk about politics, to be honest. I think there's a lot of evil in the world, and yeah, it's a big mess.
And England has felt their share of it too, I know. England has felt their share of it too, I know.
They have, yeah, they have.
Thank you for your time.
No worries.
Now we are at the North building, North Tower. This is the memorial for the North Tower, and we can see the names of all the victims that died in the attack are engraved into the side of the pool, and it's quite a phenomenal way of memorizing this very sad day. This is the Freedom Tower, one of the tallest buildings in the west part of New York. And on the left of that, we'll find the financial buildings, which are on the left of that. We find the financial buildings where all these windows were destroyed during the attack, and these buildings have been renovated. Again, this was a very hard time for New York. I remember people were crying, people were in tears, people rushed to churches, and they were, everybody thought that was the end of the world. We're trying to not remember the pain, but we're trying to remember the danger of terrorism and how can we fight terrorism with every effort that we can.